I was scrolling through the Somatic Institute for Women in preparation for speaking with you and read this beautiful line that I'd love to start with, which was that if the core of the Institute is about one thing, it's about feeling. And I'd love to talk a little bit about the Somatic Institute for Women and the core of its message and teaching being about feeling.
Yeah, so as a somatic psychotherapist, which is my kind of original trade, if we want to call that, I started to really realize working with people that the biggest fear we have is feeling. We have a phobia of feeling in our culture, and that is coming through on so many levels. The reason why it's systemic, it's cultural, it's colonial, it is institutional. There is such a, what I like to call, like, there's a grooming of how we are invited into being within our Western culture that is severed from the body. It's top down. We are operating from the head up. And that's resulted in such a severe divorce from being in our bodies as human beings. And the central premise and the invitation of the Somatic Institute for Women is not only about feeling, but feeling safe to feel. And that's really the first step, is what's needed to even feel ready to feel your sensations, your emotions, the physiological impulses that you experience through your body. So the school is actually, I would say, groundwork more than anything else around embodied somatic safety and looking at the different layers that has contributed to not feeling safe. And a lot of them is just what I mentioned, like they're really coming from the outside. A lot of the time we believe that there's something wrong with us. We have this internalized toxic shame that we carry, that who I am is wrong, I'm at fault, like I'm faulty, I'm fundamentally flawed, and this is why I can't X, Y, and Z, right? And so I really place a responsibility back out on how our culture is or is not, and sort of work the way back in from there, from a cultural systemic level to an intergenerational level. Like, how has our family members, our generational line, been around their experience as a human being? And most of it is traumatic, actually. I feel like our generation and maybe our parents' generation are the first within our culture to really have access and availability to doing deeper inner work. And so, yeah, I'm kind of like moving around a larger context of your question, but this is how we really approach the situation, is that it's not your fault, actually, and to bring a lot of spaciousness to the fear of feeling. There's so much body shame that women have. There's so much shame around not being able to be this or do that. And so we really provide a fertile ground for women to relax into, that knowing that there is a lot of disconnection that has happened. It's like there's been this somatic emotional desert that we were born into. We need to, like, water the garden slowly to start feeling our feelings. So yeah, we really support a understanding, a rewiring as to the cultural implications, the social systemic implications for not being able to feel, to look at the results of that addiction, separation from the land, separation from spirit, codependency, being in toxic relationships, not taking care of ourselves, not taking care of our bodies, not centering our needs, and that just being more and more of a separation point. So we really focus on, through the intellect and through the mind, recognizing these pieces, and then very slowly working with the nervous system to open up the capacity to feel again. So it's working like from an outside in and inside out process. And it's really profound to just center what I find is one of the most, if not the most important pieces of being a human being. But we have to do that in a really slow way. So the certification, which we call not only certification, but a lifestyle and a community, is 14 months long, because our central virtue, I could say, is the notion of titration, which is drip feeding and pacing the experience. We can't blast people open into feeling. So yeah, it's a blossoming and an unfurling process to get safe to feel sensation, basically. Because when we feel sensation, we feel life again. So it's really like feeling again is letting life in. That's usually why we do that, to be in connection to existence and ourself.
Mm, so beautiful. You said this great phrase, which was you start to water the garden. And I'm curious what that process looks like. Where do you start? How do you start? I mean, I know it's getting people to feel safe, to feel again. And what are some of those first steps into that process?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what I just mentioned, but one of the first steps is really offloading the responsibility. Like it's so big what happens when women get permission to know that there's nothing wrong with them. That in itself is already such a weight offloaded from their psyche and their bodies. So just being in a community space where it's like, oh, okay, this is an issue much larger than myself, already creates opening, already creates relaxation. And then from there, I would say slowly drip feeding in somatic practices that are digestible and accessible, that begin to rewire how people are orienting towards themselves. So doing really basic practices like orienting, slowly taking a breath, slowly looking around the room and scanning, like the even to slow down and stop and just scan a space, that's not something that people do normally in their daily life. So these little micro practices that bring presence in, I mean, this is a podcast called In Presence We Trust, so it's very fitting. It's like, how can we bring ourselves into current reality, into the now? And that's really fucking scary for people as well, because that's where they start to feel. Yeah. So doing these micro practices of feeling, slowing down the breath, bringing tone to the breath, bringing touch to the body. It's like everything that is centered around breath, touch, sound, and movement is how we start to massage the system and water the garden. And bringing women actually into the idea of feeling good. Pleasure regulates the nervous system. And I'm not talking about sexual pleasure or erotic pleasure, but what feels good. And so we also start to bring in the idea of pleasure-centered leadership, and looking actually at the internalized capitalism that we embody around needing to perform, needing to do, needing to produce, and all these narratives that we're running unconsciously that don't even allow us to slow down. So again, there's a lot of coupling of almost like reprogramming and coming into a new paradigm of permission, that you are allowed, like that you don't have to perform and produce all the time. Women often we don't realize what we're operating under, because we're so conditioned to be in a certain way, especially when it comes to something like internalized capitalism, which is basically operating under the belief that my existence has to produce and do. And if I don't do, I'm not worthy, basically. So shifting into a new space of valuing being and seeing the actual value that it has of the connection to the life and to self and to relating and to the earth. It's actually also a shift in the value system that we need to bring in. So there's a lot of psychological work that we have to do, and dismantling, and working with the whole system, the psyche, the nervous system, um, the transpersonal as well, eventually, to come into a place of really valuing why you would even want to do this in the first place.
So I'm really curious in hearing you share about the challenge of this process of unlearning, and whilst still being embedded in the same system in which this is occurring. How does that show up, and what do you do to work with that process? I'm just imagining, there's this, it's so beautiful that you're in this 14-month program, people are learning to feel again, and then yet they go back to their families, back out into the world, and all of that same information is just still there of why it's not safe.
That's why the education is really important, because what's happening, and I've seen it evident we're now in the 5th year of the program. It's sort of like when you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like when you start to see your own bullshit, you can't really unsee your own bullshit. You can still act out your patterns, which we all do. But it is like something breaks. This is the feedback that I've gotten from the women. It's like they start to see through new eyes. And that's because of the slowness that we take in the program. It's not a sledgehammer effect. We're not giving these highly cathartic experiences that they can't integrate. That's the beauty of taking time and slowly bringing it in. And it's more like some women take longer than others. There's no right pace for rewiring yourself. But the somatic practices are the embodiment practices are at the core of the rewiring process, because what happens is that I'm talking about a lot of concepts to women, and then at the end of the year, I'm asking them, I'm sharing about the same concepts, and I say, do you get what I mean now? It's not a concept in your mind, it's felt. And they're like, yes, I get it. Like even the idea of embodied presence, that's a concept for a lot of people. You can talk about it, it can sound really inviting and good, but it's often not tangible in an embodied way because they don't feel safe. And often what I hear women saying, because we keep them accountable, they have to, because it's a certification as well. They have to upload practices. They're doing a lot. They're being supported by that we have 10 women that go through the program with one support coach that really helps them through the course. And so they have a lot of accountability. They literally can't certify unless they're doing these practices. So they are going on an embodied journey, and something eventually feels safe enough in their body to open. One of my teachers says the body will reorganize itself when it feels safe. And so it's almost like the fruit is ripe enough and then it drops. And so it's not the same for every woman. It's not even a moment. Often they realize, I'm not reacting the same way I used to. I'm not caring as much about what people think about me. Oh, I noticed when I was at this party, I was just all of a sudden dancing wildly and not caring anymore. It's like they reflect back on their experience and like, oh, I'm not running the same story anymore. And so it's just this slow almost identity shift that happens. Um, and it just takes the time it needs. But I do have to say that we have such incredible teachers that have such a powerful transmission that it's like you can't not want to go there, because you feel the liberation in the teachers that we have. I'm really proud of the faculty that we have. The transmission of the teachers are coming through from this this notion that who you are is more powerful than the tools and techniques that you share. So the teachers are a living embodiment and frequency and example of possibility. And that in itself is already inviting women into new possibilities within themselves as well. So yeah, I would just say it's a process of transmission and the pace that their nervous system and attachment system can go as well.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that definition of embodied leadership. It was so clear and concise and perfect. And I would love to also hear, you mentioned a few moments ago, pleasure-centered leadership. And I'd love to hear your definition, or how you live that in your work.
Yeah. So when we get into leadership, we're often stuck in this, again, this internalized capitalism that is reflected outside in the way that we believe success and productivity needs to be. And so often what's happening when we go into a leadership role, we believe that we have to be in a certain way, excel in a certain way, and push out of our own capacity in order to serve other people. So another way of looking at the idea of pleasure-centered leadership is looking at it through the lens of regenerative leadership, which is, how do I as a leader show up with a full cup? How do I show up resourced? How do I show up in my embodied leadership? Because it's the idea of the way you live is the way you lead. Yeah. So how are there incongruencies, or how incoherent is your embodiment to what you're teaching? Now, there's a lot of incredible teachers that can facilitate and teach and transmit, and areas of their lives that are not kind of in like matching in integrity. And it's also about allowing yourself to be a human being. Like, I definitely don't have pressure for myself to be in any other way that I am. But how in touch and how much in relationship am I specifically with my nervous system? Like, am I aware when I'm out of capacity? Am I aware when I am undernourished and not taking care of myself? And then I'm bringing that energy in to my facilitation. Because if we look at who you are is the teacher through the lens of embodied leadership, it's not just your words that's transmitting, it's your embodiment that's transmitting. So the idea, I'm going to take a breath. So the idea of pleasure-centered leadership is coming from a place where you feel good, because pleasure is about feeling good. Yeah. I'm not talking about like the divine feminine tantric goddess. It's like touching herself everywhere and taking these long sensual breaths and like making orgasmic sounds all the time. Like, that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about being in pleasure and pleasure-centered leadership. That's beautiful, but I just want to like really paint the picture of what I'm talking about here. It's making sure that, not making sure, but having the guiding light around showing up in your work and in your leadership in a way that's not subscribing to internalized capitalism that you're embodying. So how much am I pushing myself to produce, to perform, to be in a certain way that actually masks my true transmission. And we're doing this without even realizing it. So there's like a filter that starts to happen with us. It's like there's us, the filter that separates us from really transmitting, and then what our students are receiving, which is a mixture of both. So being in our pleasure is, and being in a regenerative form of leadership is about, especially when you're showing up in leadership, is how well are you taking care of yourself? Are you having a more outward, penetrative, energetic relationship, or are you in a place where you're in yourself and also coming into transmission where you're not losing in touch with your own nervous system, because your nervous system is influencing the group field. But if you're burning yourself out while you're teaching, your students are going to start to pick that up in your nervous system. We have mirror neurons that are firing off. They're literally mirroring you. And so how well are you actually slowing down, taking a moment, checking in with your body, having your needs met, so you're actually a wellspring of transmission rather than slowly having like the battery power going down. Yeah, this is like pretty basic stuff, but when you enter into like an agreement with yourself that I'm going to stay in pleasure and that my teaching is going to fill me up rather than deplete me, you start to do a lot of things in your personal life and in the way that you run your business or the way that you teach that center feeling good, which is what I would call pleasure-centered leadership. But again, it's a paradigm shift of getting out of this idea that I have to produce in order to be worthy as a facilitator and leader.
I'm curious to hear a little bit about your own personal journey with this as a facilitator and some of the thresholds that you've had to pass through, and maybe even if there's like a current growth edge or threshold that you're navigating around this topic.
I wouldn't say it's about being a facilitator. I would say it's about being a CEO of quite a large company. Yeah, I mean, it's about leadership, you know. So I would shift it more from like facilitation to leadership. Um, and being a business owner and being a teacher, that they've been my biggest growth edges, because I've been facilitating for 15 years and it feels like second nature to me. In the past, some of my challenges has being like just stopping to care what people think about me, not taking everything personal, learning to be really open and receptive to feedback and relational around that. I've also gone through a big journey around really claiming what, like in the past 2 years, I've gone through a big journey around claiming who I'm here to serve. And I think that that's a really important piece to anchor into, especially with a lot of like the woke scene that is happening these days. Everyone has an opinion about how you should be through a social justice lens. And I might start to be a little like politically controversial here. I'm not going to go into my own political views or anything like that, but I think it is really, really, really important as a leader that you're not getting influenced by the outside world and certain ideologies about how you should be, who you should be teaching to, in what way, in what language. I have a women's school, right? So I've had so many people coming to me telling me that I should be more diverse and I should be like this. And if I'm not like this, then I'm transphobic and then I'm a bigot and all of this stuff. And so I know a lot of women in my field who work with women have gone through the pressures, especially around topics of gender, that they should all of a sudden be, for instance, in my school, that I should allow trans women into my school. And that there was a moment where it was like, oh, am I a bad person? Is there something wrong? Am I evil if I don't? And like, this is a real life example of the things that I've had to face, especially with the school. I mean, we have 150,000 students in the school right now. Like, there's a big field. And so the bigger the field, the bigger the pushback of people that are like, well, you should be like this. And that can happen on any scale of your leadership. And it's so important that you're rooted in who you're serving. Like, I cannot stress this enough, because then nothing touches you. You're unshakable in the sense of like, I'm allowed to serve whoever I want, and I don't have to serve everybody, actually. And I think it's a really important conversation to have, because what starts to happen is you can begin to dilute yourself trying to serve everyone. And like, get over the savior complex. It is a shadow that we embody as facilitators, that we have to save everyone. It's like, you can't save everyone. That's why we have and you shouldn't even be expected to serve everyone. That's why we have a diverse range of facilitators and different experience and background, where if you feel you can't serve someone, have a reference of people that you can refer them to. Like, when I have beautiful trans women coming to me and saying, can I be a part of your program? And I say, no, I'm sorry. And that's because we work directly with female physiology, female hormones, female body parts, the history and trauma of women intergenerationally that we carry in our bodies. Like, we have good reason to only work with female bodies, right? And it's also within my scope. I'm not going to work outside of my scope. It's actually harmful. And if I were to introduce other identities into my space because I think it's the right thing to do, they may feel even more excluded, and I might create even more harm, right? So there's all of these pieces to be aware of. And I have a resource list of some amazing somatic practitioners that I refer them to. And I say, I think that these people or this education will support you much better, and being okay with that. So, yeah, I think it's really, really important that you're rooted in who you're serving, because I do see this as one of the biggest challenges, especially in today's political sphere, social political sphere, that there's challenges and that there's an abandoning of self as well when it comes to your leadership. So that's not so present with me, but it has been one of the biggest challenges when it comes to leadership.
Yeah, no, I'm just really, there's a part of me, it's so nice to talk to someone else who has similar struggles. And I find myself in what you're sharing, going through my own version of that, which was like, getting the feedback I should be different, and then being that. And then when I was that, then getting the feedback I should be more like this. And it gets to a point when you've done that enough times, you're just like, okay, fuck it. Like, there's no way I'm going to please everyone. There's just like, it's not humanly possible. And it like, there's that moment where it's like, the only thing I can actually do is be true to who I am, and to stick with that and trust that people are going to be attracted to that. And I think a lot of people coming into facilitation and leadership do have this savior complex. And it's like, oh, I have to be everything for everyone, and I don't want to fuck it up, and I don't want to get canceled. And
Yeah, that's
it's
another one.
yeah.
The canceling thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. And I just love the permission that you're giving of like, hey, you don't have to be everything for everyone, and really like honing in on who are you here to serve. This is a great upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Are there any other present day struggles that you're moving through? I'm learning so much just by hearing you talk about your personal.
Yeah,
So
cool.
it's really good.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I think one of the biggest pieces I'm sitting with at the moment is like, I didn't sign up to be a CEO of a company. That's not what I was looking to be. I wasn't looking to be anything. I just had my purpose, which has been very clear and strong since I was 18. And it's not changed. It's evolved in how it's created, but the message has been the same the whole time. And so I'm a visionary, I'm a creator, I'm a teacher, I'm a transmitter, I'm a leader, and apparently a CEO, but it wasn't my choice. And I don't even like fully attach myself to this identity, but just for the sake of talking about a label, that's what I am. And running a business, it's not been hard. Actually, I have a good flair for it naturally. But what starts to happen is what I've realized as my company has grown, it's almost like two different containers. There's the container of my teachings and my school of the certification, and then there's the container of the entire company. And I have a lot of women who come through my program. They go through the program, and because we have one woman, a support coach that takes 10 women through the program, they're marking their practices, they're doing monthly calls with them outside of the program teachings. Every year we headhunt students who can become a support coach. So this year we've had 24 support coaches. Many women have repeated over the years, and then slowly we gather through a few more as the student numbers grow. And what I've realized is that the women who are students in my program, they receive me as a teacher. Then they come in to the business and they start working for the school. And so they're now in the company sector of the school. They're now relating to me not only as a teacher, but their boss. And again, not another term I use, but I'm using these terms because it's like that's what I am. I've had a lot of discomfort around using these labels for myself because they feel hierarchical. CEO, boss. And one of my shadows is actually not owning hierarchy. And there is healthy hierarchy. And I really believe actually in healthy hierarchy and like benevolent dictatorship sometimes. And the idea of now needing to when I've been teaching about a paradigm that's not top down, and then all of a sudden they're entering into some kind of top down relationship with me that isn't negative, but it's a certain dynamic, and then all of a sudden I'm seen in a different way. I'm still behaving the same way. My personality doesn't change, but the dynamic has changed. And there's a shadow that happens in my business, which I've had to really clean up when it's split. It's like I have to split myself in two in relation to some value systems. And what's happening is my business, my school is all around feeling and owning your feelings and honoring your feelings and speaking your truth. But then when you come into the company, I can't care about everyone's fucking feelings all the time. I can't sit there and have conversation and conversation and conversation about everyone's feelings. So it's a really interesting experience to have a school that advocates for that and then trying to find the healthy version of that within a business, because it's not sustainable when everyone is talking about their feelings and centering their feelings. We have to do a job, and we have a culture that really honors and centers the feelings. We have leadership calls that allow women to feel seen, and we receive feedback and we work with that. But it's a funny experience developing a business that centers feeling and then trying to navigate that in a sustainable way. And so it's reflected to me the gaps within my own self as a leader. Like, your business reflects who you are, the operations of it, the nuance of it, the undercurrents of it. And so I've seen my leaking out of my own fawning responses and wanting everyone to be happy and good and on the same page, because I'm a very relational being. Like, I'm super relational. I want everyone to be in reciprocity and feel good. But when you run a business, there you cannot deny it. And it's not about operating under a capitalistic patriarchal business structure, but there's a holistic system. It can't be fully feminine based and it can't be fully masculine based, let's say, if we're talking in these energetic terms. So I've just been navigating how to be comfortable to be a boss and to clean up some of the shadows that I've allowed to leak through around feelings, because it starts to actually disturb the space. And just discovering what is a holistic way to run a new paradigm of a business that centers feeling but gets that gets shit done, and that people come and they do their job basically. So it's been a journey of how to bring my values into the company and also be running a company at the same time. So people who are into business will find this interesting. People who aren't, they might find it a bit boring what I'm talking about. But it is a fascinating process of creating a new paradigm of business in quite a large company, and also realizing like it's not. I need someone else to my caliber of leadership that I trust to be the CEO of my company, because I just want to teach. I either have to choose one or the other, because I'm really good in business leadership as well, but it's not my purpose, basically. So that's where I'm at right now, is like slowly finding women who, or a woman, I already kind of have a sense of who it can be, to begin taking the reins, basically, and just holding that container, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. No, I mean, I don't think this is boring at all. I'm imagining anyone listening probably doesn't either. And even if they're not there, it's a great, like, um, coming attractions moment of when you start out as a workshop leader or a leader, you don't always see the far end of the road ahead and what you create and where it could take you. But one of the things that you're speaking to that's a really alive topic for me right now is dual roles. And I'm curious, especially from like a trauma informed perspective, how you're navigating dual roles, or if there's a way that you're going to change how you navigate those relationships, particularly that are intertwined in group work and your business, where there's multiple hats that you're trying to wear together.
Yeah. Saying that I need support and help, and that I don't have to do it all by myself. That's it. I had this realization about 2 months ago that softened me so much, where I was like, oh, I don't, when I realized that my company was a whole different container than my teachings and my certification, I was like, it was like, because they were blended, and they are blended, but it was like, oh, I can't be expected to hold powerful, strong leadership, because there were some things cracking through in our systems and support for a lot of our team, and that I started to take on the pressure of like, I'm not doing a good job because I'm not giving them as much support as they're needing. And I was like, hang on a second. I don't have to be the only one doing that. And so just on a business level, I just realized like I get to choose how I want to be, and then find the right people to do the other parts. So it really was about support, and it's not easy to get high level support because people need to have a lot of experience, and especially from a trauma informed perspective in my particular instance, because I don't even want to remove this word trauma informed. It's becoming quite a buzzword. I would say nervous system informed. So yeah, that's basically it. And just in my personal life in general, I'm realizing, I mean, I'm a community being. I love being around community. I'm such an advocate for us not believing that we have to be everything. We have to be the chef, the caretaker, the CEO, the content creator, the sexy goddess, the partner, the wife, the mother, like all these things in one. It's like, it's ridiculous. We're built to be in communities of 150 people, like we really should be living in community. And I believe that we should be running business in community as well, that we're not doing it all alone, that we're so hyper individualistic. And that's why I love collaboration and coming together, actually, so people can hold different pieces. So it's just about softening up and really shifting within your body, because it can't be a mental concept that you don't have to hold it all alone. And then from there, I think once you're available for that possibility can start entering in. Because as soon as I shifted that perspective, it was like, oh, I can see who could support me and how. Now, of course, that's really context dependent, like on your life and your circumstances and stuff like that. But that's the main
Yeah,
thing.
totally. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. I think that's a big one for the lone wolf, do it all types that many of us are in this
Yeah.
field is opening up for more support. Yeah.
And humbling down as well, like really humbling down. I mean, I've even seen it just on a personal level, being a very strong woman, that I'm just realizing what type of containers need to hold me. So it's not even a matter of like, oh, I can't be held, but it's like, I've even realized now, like, wow, I need an alpha man as a partner. So rather than me thinking I wouldn't say that I'm not soft, I'm just me. Um, whatever soft is and soft isn't. But there's this idea that we need to be softer and more surrendered and rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, no, I just need someone who can like hold who I am, basically. So there's also those things of realizing what type of support that we need, that we know that we can actually benefit from. Because a lot of people are worried that if they get support, they're going to end up having to hold them or support them as well somehow. So that, like, especially for people who really know how to support and hold themselves. So that's just one piece that I'm starting to realize, is like, it's not just support, but what's the energetic of the support that I need to receive.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I want to make a little gear shift now, because it wouldn't be a good conversation with you if we didn't talk a little bit more about shadow work. And shadow work is a big part of your work. And I'm curious for you to speak into a little bit why shadow work is so important right now.
Well, the shadow is everything we can't see. It's the hidden, it's the rejected, it's the denied, the exiled parts of self. So we're often operating under one version of ourself, one story of ourself, and we're leaving half the picture behind without even realizing that we're leaving half the picture behind. So I think shadow work is really important, because you get to know yourself fully and wholly. We are basically developed and know ourselves through our constructed self, right? So this self is, the constructed self is developed from all the information we received right from being a baby, of what's allowed and what's not allowed, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, how to behave, not how to not behave. And that's really dependent on the environment you grew up, the values you grew up in, the society, the culture that you grew up in. That all shapes your constructed self. And it doesn't mean that your constructed self is all bullshit and inauthentic, but it's often only the parts that were allowed to exist, that were acceptable. And that acceptableness is often our survival plug. It's the survival mechanism that plugs us into connection and belonging. So we've received a lot of explicit and implicit information that in order for us to experience love and belonging and connection, we have to be in a certain way. This is all unconscious. that means that all those parts of you that you learnt were not allowed. They go somewhere. They didn't disappear. They're in the shadow. They're hidden. But that doesn't mean that they don't exist. They are literally playing out in your life. They're acting out. They're just sideways and upside down and back to front. And so doing shadow work is discovering a lot of behaviors that you already have existing and operating, becoming conscious of them and reintegrating them. We're fragmented. So it's a process of consolidation of exiled parts that like restore our sense of self. So for instance, if you have addiction, often your addiction is a manifestation of an exiled part that doesn't feel safe, but it's trying to get its need met. We are constantly, we're like need machines. We're made to have our needs met. Having our needs met is the most important thing in our life, actually, because without having our needs met, we don't feel safe and connected. So we're always going to try to get our needs met consciously and unconsciously. Unconsciously, that's happening through the exiled parts of our shadow, trying to feel connection in some way. Addiction is a way to feel connection, whether it's like food addiction, sex addiction, drug addiction, gaming addiction, anything that we're gripping onto as a source to, like, I really look at it as a way to plug in to something, to fill ourselves up. Relationship, like love addiction, is really hyper strong. The codependency or the avoidance that we have is also a manifestation of our shadow of repressed trauma. The defense mechanisms that we carry, the masks that we wear to get people to like us, the strategies that we embody for love, approval, and validation. Like, there's so much that's going on that is your shadow manifesting, and we just we accept it as normality, and it is normal. Actually, there's nothing not normal about it, but we don't question how we are, or what's going on. So the process of shadow work, for instance, is questioning, like, was my yes really true? Or was that a mask to just get someone to like me? Am I doing that all the time? How much am I actually abandoning myself because I don't feel safe within myself to be in myself? And it just comes back to the whole conversation from the beginning, that shadow work is a pathway to feeling safe, to be who you are. And we don't often realize how unsafe we feel to just be who we are. And being who we are is being honest about who you are in each moment. It's not a story about who you are. It's about being in contact with your present moment experience. And that's why being connected to your body and your feelings are imperative, to have a sensation-based relationship with yourself. So you're in tune with what's arising, how you're feeling, what's actually real about this moment for you, and learning how, like, the skill to communicate how you're feeling, what's alive, what you're thinking, the impact that's creating. I mean, Rachel, this is all your work that you also do as well. And the shadow work for me is a path to seeing what's blocking us on a personality identity level, and coming back into the present moment. And I feel the world is a barren place when it comes to connection. We are a desert when it comes to true deep connection, and we're all craving that. It's also the meaning of our existence is connection. And so shadow work helps us get the connection we're really craving for, by getting honest and real with ourselves, and meeting life from that place. So for me, it's a spiritual path. It's like shadow work has brought me, I mean, non-duality, embodied non-duality has been an orientation of mine for over 15 years, which is like this embodied present moment relationship with self where I'm dissolving binary and separation. I'm certainly like not speaking in highly enlightened terms. It's not that I'm walking around in presence all the time, but the relationship to presence is of high value to me, and it's a quality of being within myself and with life, within my business, within relationality that is so prevalent to how I feel plugged in. And I see that doing what we could call, I would say, shadow work is like identity work, working with my attachment to my identity, to my self-image, and allowing that to slowly dissolve where I don't have the need to be a somebody anymore. Like, of course, we're all a somebody and we want to be seen and loved and validated in the world, but there's not a grip of like, if this were taken away, would I be okay with myself? And that's something I feel so rooted in. Like, if my business closed down, if I got cancelled and everyone shunned me and all this stuff, like, it would feel shit. But my sense of self isn't rooted in my identity, specifically as a leader. Like, it could finish tomorrow and I would be okay. I would be like, I feel happy and connected to myself and life, and that's what I'm rooted in, and that's what shadow work has given me, that I'm not gripping on to my identity so strongly that if they're at threat, I don't get destabilized to the point of collapse. And especially as leaders, I think it's some of the most important work we could be doing.
Beautiful. You have such a gift for explaining things so well and so clearly. I'm like right with you. I know you just led a shadow work facilitator training, and I'm curious what you find are the main skills that people need to be able to facilitate shadow work.
In terms of facilitating shadow work, you got to do your shadow work. That's it. It's like, how connected are you to your own shadows? The skills, I would say, and this is something that I really, really love about both Christian Pankhurst, who I run the trainings with and is also a collaborator of yours as well, is that we both value the subtlety over heightened sensation and experience. And so our facilitation skill set is really about creating spaciousness and slowing down to actually feel sensation that's alive and be able to track your experience and move through that protective layer that's there. So to learn how to facilitate that requires a slowing down of needing to give someone an experience that's hyper aroused and stimulated. Now, that often happens because the work is really exciting, but as a facilitator, to not come from an agenda that they need to get somewhere or have this experience, because often what's happening is that we're making it more about us as a facilitator than their experience, because we want them to walk away with a good experience. So we know we did a good job, right? So this is more like a paradigm shift as a facilitator that especially I try to bring in, of what type of facilitation and leadership are you doing and where are you operating from in your leadership? How much are you making it about yourself versus being really exquisitely person-centered with that person's process, and helping them to try to not get anywhere other than meeting who they are in the present moment. So the skill set is a lot around somatic tracking and slowing down and training yourself and your participant how to track sensation in the present moment. And everything else kind of falls into the cracks, or falls into the web of that, because then you can actually do meaningful work with yourself. You're not just playing around with more identity and being on the surface level. So yeah, the skill is like somatic facilitation, I guess you would say. It's like, how can you slow people down to feel and start from there? And you have to be able to do that yourself to do that work. So yeah, doing your own shadow work and somatic facility. I mean, we call it somatic shadow work. So it's an embodied way to experience the shadow, because one of the most important things that we need to recognize is that you can understand how you seek validation and approval, your masks, your defense mechanisms, the ranges that you need to embody that are repressed. But if they're not landing in the body, if they're not feeling the emotions and sensations that are linked to the mask, that is linked to the unsafety, it won't integrate fully. Like it can, but it won't land fully. And so they'll leave repeating the same patterns, because the body has its own pace. So you really need to learn how to get people trained in working with somatic embodiment for the work to be effective. And I would say that's across the board, no matter what you're facilitating.